So moving forward for the rest of the semester, again, we'll be doing a lot of the lower body aspect from the hinge versus the squat, but the cueing aspect, especially like the motor learning, and I think these videos are like 12 or 15. Yeah, they're 15 to, this one's a little long, 20 minutes, but um, this content is what's going to be the basis for moving forward for how we're going to structure or change the performance of the movement. And what we're doing for these next 4 weeks is we're going to spend a couple weeks looking at kettlebell work, particularly starting with the kettlebell swing. Oops, right here. And pay no attention to this stupid head aspect. I like the CrossFit videos, but this is a CrossFit swing, and that shoulder flexion movement's not there. But what I want you to focus in is on the hip hinge component. And let me just back up here a little bit. So when you look at this hip hinge, this is basically your deadlift. And what we're doing with the kettlebell aspect is we're incorporating this explosiveness to the hip hinge. And it's a coordinated movement to, whoops, everyone, I got muted here. Unless you had a question and I just muted you, but it sounded like a meat grinder. The explosiveness that's going to happen here is that you're transferring this hip hinge power to that kettlebell, and then that kettlebell is moving forward, and it's just, you're hanging on for the ride. So it's not an upper body exercise at all. That's why I don't like this particular video, because it's showing that overhead aspect. But this forms the basis for the foundation for the kettlebell snatch and the kettlebell clean, which is what we're going to progress towards. And so most people probably have done some variation of the kettlebell swing. Most people that show me, they're doing it wrong. What I'm typically seeing when I see people do a kettlebell swing is they're doing too much squatting, too much vertical movement, and not enough horizontal movement. And so when someone goes through this positioning, there's very little change that happens vertically up and down in their pelvis. Most of this is bending forward, bending up. People get too much knee bend. Like, this is a horrible, you can look at this image down here. This is horrible thing. And the reason is because she dropped her hips so low, right? So she's doing more of a squat than a hip hinge, right? And so that's like, this is a bad one here. Probably okay there. That's a gout. That's okay. Bad one. And so this one's probably okay, right? Based on the range of motion, but you can see that the hip doesn't change much. This is a horrible swing, right? Too much squat. This looks more like a squat than a hip hinge. So it's going to be the practical application of hip hinging versus squatting, and learning how to generate force to get that kettlebell accelerated. And why this is important is that what we're going to do is we're going to take that momentum of that kettlebell, we're going to match or change it to a clean. So if you can go through that video and just know like the execution of this and the cueing, how you're going to get someone to do that now, not when they're focusing on squatting, but now when they have a kettlebell in their hand and they're trying to do dynamic movement at the same time. So it's going to be important. How you're going to be graded on this moving forward is that it's not going to be a group project. It's going to be an individual one-on-one coaching aspect, and you're going to perform the clean. You're going to be on the performance of it, and then you guys are going to switch roles and learning how you coach or communicate that. So that's for the kettlebell clean, snatch, and the hinge, basic hinge. We might do goblet squat, but squatting's okay. So if you can do a little bit of your own research and start playing around with it, and if you have a dumbbell at home, or even if you don't have a dumbbell, take a backpack and fill it up with some books and start to play around with it, and just to kind of see if you can start getting that motion and experience it a little bit, and then see if you can progress someone through it too. Like, see if you can teach it. And that's what we're going to be doing next week. But if you have the chance to jump in and doing it now, that would be great. But again, the cueing videos for the difference between the hinge and the squat, how you're going to get someone to do that. So let's watch this video here real quick. Look here, if you watch those videos in cueing, he's manipulated the environment a little bit. So he set up an external cue as this half foam roller, or this 6-inch roller. And then you can see the placement here. And you see that the kettlebell, when you start to swing, it doesn't start between the legs. It actually starts out in front. And you'll see that right? That's a perfect deadlift, right? Bang. He bends his knees just enough to get the glutes involved, and he's bending forward. He didn't squat down. His shoulders, our hips are almost in the same plane, kind of like not that one. Here or this particular image here. Oh, that's not what I want. This image here. Not trying to keep his body erect. He's letting his body become parallel to the horizon. Feet are about shoulder width apart. And let's just accelerate this a little bit. And so again, parallel, right? He's not squatting down, his butt's up high, butt and shoulders are in the same plane. If I draw a line right there. And what he's going to do to initiate this movement is he's going to take that kettlebell, he's out with shoulder flexion, and he's going to throw it. He's going to try to throw it between his legs so he can load that entire posterior chain. So you get a stretch on the back, stretch on the glutes, through the thoracolumbar fascia, stretch through the hamstrings and the gastroc. It's going to be like a bowstring that he's going to use to throw that the opposite direction. This guy talks too much. And the reason why he put that cue there is that if you start to squat down too much, you're going to knock that over, right? So it's a cue to keep you. See what he just did there? You kind of squatted down, and let's play that again. You go down too low, you're doing too much knee movement, too much vertical movement, not enough horizontal movement. So that's how most people end up doing the kettlebell swing wrong. Is they do two things. They squat too much, and they also try to control the kettlebell too much. And you can see on his front swing here that he's not lifting that up. That's just momentum. So this movement of the kettlebell coming forward, this is not shoulder activity at all. This is the momentum that was generated from the hip flexion, that aggressive hip extension that accelerated that kettlebell moving forward. Boom, accelerated forward. And now you see him come down and go too low. And that's why this video, other video that I showed from the CrossFit where he was coming up all the way over his head, that specifically is a CrossFit swing, and that's not part of a normal kettlebell swing. And you wouldn't control the range of motion. Normally, if you're using a kettlebell work, you're trying to do this explosiveness so that you can transition to other exercises. Like you'll start with the swing as a foundation, switch arms, and then go to a snatch or a clean, which will show. And again, snatch and clean is the same vernacular that we'll use for Olympic lifting with the barbell later on. I do kettlebell first because I think kettlebell is actually easier to learn than Olympic lifting, and it teaches you better dynamic because there's less consequence to having the wrong. You don't have to worry about a barbell full of weight. So, any questions with the KIN 214 stuff? How many people feel confident with their kettlebell swing? No one? Gerardo, I thought you would at least jump in there.
It's because I always thought of it as a shoulder workout, and I would have been using my shoulders to lift it up. I never thought about it just like.
Okay. Is anyone not that like Raju or Sean, Kate? Have you?
No, I never done it.
No.
I have, yeah.
Okay. Do you guys do them with your athletes at the facility?
We actually do, yeah. It's in our programming that we're doing right now, the phase that we're in. So.
Oh, cool. Very good. Raju, you were going to jump in?
I did it in high school.
All right. This used to be like kind of a fringe. Now it's more popular. And like when you look at some of the fitness trends, you got these has anyone ever worked out? No, that's not what I want to do. Like I started these guys, steel maces.
I started
steel
using
maces
those.
and yeah. What size are you using?
It was a 5-pound one, and then there's also those smaller ones in the middle. There's 8-pound ones, those little club looking things.
Yeah, well, those are club bells. So you have the steel mace. I used a 7-pound. That's enough just to kind of create some torque. I have a 15-pound. I'm like, I don't know what to do with it. But these guys here, these are club bell. Usually, it used to be called Indian club bell. It was, I think it was a Vedic thing, but they would do different types of training with these like off-center little bats, and they would do like an arm swing, and yeah, they were like, this is like the Indian stuff, like the Indian club bells and the different types of offloaded weight. That's where it started. So kettlebell was more of a Russian thing. So each continent had its own type of training implement, it looks like. But the basics of the kettlebell are key, where it's more of this. I've talked much about the hip hinge and looking at how the hip hinge is key, and now being able to use that to generate power. And from an athletic perspective, if you can teach someone how to explosively come out of that hip and transfer power in a linear direction, so you're basically using rotational force generation and then transferring that to a linear aspect, that's like the key for almost all athletics. That's cool. They made it into the four hammer. So yeah, there's different trends, but it's interesting to see how kettlebells kind of started. And it was what was his name? Who was the guy, the crazy Russian guy who kind of popularized it? Pavel.
I was actually just talking to this other trainer at the gym I go to, and we were just having this conversation about kettlebells and like the guy that made it popular.
Testosterone. Yeah, here he is. What was the conversation you were having about him?
He was like teaching me how to use some of them, and like we were just having a conversation about how popular they got, and he was just talking about like the crazy Russian guy. I can't remember the name, but
yeah, this guy Pavel. Yeah, and let me see. This is his first book that he put. Let's see how old this was published. It's like 1998. I don't know. Who knows? Let's see. Maybe not that long. I might get my days. Oh, it was not 2014. It was definitely earlier than that. 6 years. Maybe it was 2014. Yeah, I thought it was longer than that. I thought it was like 2000 super joints, maybe. Who knows? But anyway, it's relatively new. It's not relatively new. It's been around, but it's not within the, it's definitely older technology, but how things have become more popular. And now you look at any facility, they have, you can go to Target now and buy a kettlebell, right? That's crazy, right? Now it's only like 8 pounds, 9 pounds, but that's that. All right. So you guys clear on the game plan for Thursday, active and passive range of motion stuff, and then start to preview some of the kettlebell components. And then we'll hit the ground running to make sure that we're caught up. And then what I really want to get with the flexibility aspect is really getting you guys good at understanding the programming. And it's not going to be so much with the flexibility, but it's going to be with the variables for strength training, right? Making sure you're understanding the difference between the science of reps and sets and volume and so forth, so we can really get into program design. Any questions?
Are there any labs that you want us to complete for either like for KIN 230 or 231?
So for 230, or you meant 214, 231?
Yeah, 231, 214.
No, any labs any of the outstanding labs, like the heart rate position, those should be submitted by now. But if you're still outstanding on those, but for Thursday, we're going to be doing the lab together. So we're back to our normal lab schedule. Thursdays will be labs. So Tuesdays are going to quote unquote be our lecture days, and then Thursdays are going to be our lab days. And so I want to maximize our time in lab on Thursday, so we're not going through all this conversation vernacular. And if people miss stuff, then you can go back to the video and watch it. So we're putting our foot on the accelerator. We're going to move fast, basically.
All right, sounds good.